And so we're here at My Favorite Accident. And Madoka, who's this beautiful woman that we have in front of us today?
She's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Her name is Kiwaku Tanaka, and I don't think anybody can imagine what she does for a living by just looking at her. But she's actually a United Nations consultant for specialized in the area of disarmament.
Wow.
Disarmament. Do you know anybody else working
what
with
a better
disarmament?
conversation to talk about today, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So why disarmament, and how did you end up working at the United Nations in the area of disarmament?
So, although saying by disarmament, I'm particularly working on disarmament on weapons of mass destruction. You know, WMD.
The WMDs.
Yes.
Right.
So, do you know what WMD includes?
I think I remember WMD from, what was it, George W. Jr.? And those WMDs in Iraq, right?
Yeah, okay.
Did you ever find them? I don't think we ever found them, did we?
Well, luckily I have never found it. But so my question is, what weapons do you think of weapons of mass destruction, for example? You don't know, right?
Like, I don't know.
I think of biological weapons.
Yes,
biological.
that's one.
Okay.
Yes,
I
great.
think about nuclear weapons.
Yep.
But
And one more.
one more, biological, nuclear, and what else?
Chemical weapons.
How else can we destroy the planet?
Chemical weapons. So
Chemical
these
weapons.
three are categorized as weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
And all of them are basically prohibited. So by any country to produce. I mean, of course, nuclear weapons exception for 5 countries,
Right.
including the United States.
Right.
But chemical and biological weapons are all prohibited, totally. So then why disarmament? What's the point of disarmament? It's because of me working on disarmament is to the non-state actors like a terrorist or a criminal organization to develop, use, or acquire those kind of weapons.
Wow.
So I'm not working on the countries, but rather criminal actors or
Right.
terrorists.
So you're like the negotiator, huh? Like you go in.
No, I don't go to...
You got to negotiate with these insane, crazy people.
No,
And,
so I'm not myself going to talk to, for example, like ISIS that you
Right.
cannot develop any weapons of mass destruction. That kind of thing I don't do. But in order for the countries to prevent spreading those weapons to those small actors, countries has to have laws, legislations, right? So my work in the United States is going to the countries or talking to the countries to promote, to have the legislations on those
Weapons.
Weapons. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So you're, it doesn't sound like your job's too easy. Wow. So let's talk. I mean,
So you told us earlier that you've been working this job for right? For
Yeah.
15 years, right?
yes.
wow.
And you've been
starting from in the Netherlands, I worked for the chemical weapons first. So in the Netherlands, as you might know, there is an organization called Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which actually took a Nobel Peace Prize 3 years ago.
Wow.
Because they basically destroyed all the chemical weapons from Syria.
Right.
Yeah, and then
Supposedly.
supposedly.
Right.
So I started to work on the chemical weapons first, and then basically what I did was again a non-proliferation. So chemical weapons are prohibited by all the countries to produce, develop anything, but chemical substance is something that everyone can use. I mean, in the chemical industries, all the industries are using chemicals, which if you use it in a different way, it can be very, very dangerous and toxic
Right.
to harm people. So those chemical securities, of course, so the factories, laboratories has to comply with kind of regulation that any bad actors would steal or take it from those laboratories, factories. That kind of thing, chemical security, is something that I worked on. And then after the Netherlands, I moved to Geneva. Geneva is kind of a hub of the disarmament and non-proliferation of the United Nations. So
It sounds like everybody wants you. Huh? You're like sought after.
Yeah, you're sought after.
That's amazing. Where haven't you been?
Well, yes, I was very lucky that I kind of, I focused first on a very specific issue and then moved on to more general issue on disarmament in Geneva. And then I worked on biological, again, this is biological security or, or nuclear security. Or nuclear.
How did you get into this? I mean, did you have to like intern for somebody, or are you like did you work for someone else in Japan that?
This is really by accident.
Well, we want to hear that. We love that word.
Why do you like that word? Yeah.
This was actually one of the earliest accidents happened into my life. But I had never interested in this kind of work. And I was more interested in more human rights, migration, or cultural exchange, or that kind of issue.
Right.
And I studied about that. But when I applied to a work, well, in any case, I was very interested in those multilateral or multicultural work. So I've been always interested in international relations or intercultural related work. So I was looking for different jobs in the area of those international relations and multilateralism, and then I was of course looking for jobs in related to human rights or immigration or that kind of thing. But then I failed. But somehow, because especially in Japan, not many knows about chemical weapons, which shouldn't be, but
but like
not many young people who would interested in chemical weapons at the age of like mid-20s.
Right. I know people in their 40s that are still not even interested in like what can happen to this world. Of course.
Right. So the Japanese government was looking for somebody who can work on that area.
Were you working in government already? Like you?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was at graduate school at that time.
So what are they like? They put like an ad in Craigslist or something like that. Looking for a negotiator. Right.
So I was applying for a kind of government job in relation to the human rights, migration, or international law, that kind of thing. But then I failed. But somehow the government asked me if I'm interested in these chemical weapons issues. And I told them that I have no clue. And
wow.
But then, they said that if I'm interested in learning,
why don't you try it out? Yeah.
So that's how I started my work.
Wow.
Yeah, and somehow my experience in the Netherlands for 3 years was quite fascinating. It was actually my first time working in sort of diplomacy, international relations, and I was able to work with people from really different people from different countries.
Wow.
Of course, if I live in Japan or in Australia, the people who I meet or people who I get very close with are somehow people from the sort of countries with the similar values.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But in this kind of diplomacy, international relations, I have to work with so many people from different culture, different.
I mean, I can't imagine like being in a room and everybody's speaking a different language. I mean, what do you have, like 10 interpreters in there? And like, so,
everybody spoke English.
Everyone spoke English, right. So
everybody, but it's really interesting how, we have a kind of stereotyped image of nationalities, right? And then when I talk to those people from different countries, that kind of stereotype image is really true.
It is true.
Really?
I know you were saying it's not true. It is true.
Which Oh, God, I don't want any racists on this show. Come on. So tell us about these stereotypes. I'm interested.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, and of course, beyond those stereotypes image, we could become a very good friend.
Of course.
Of course.
Outside of the actual meeting, in the margins of the meeting, even when we had to, we have to be in the different positions in the formal plenary meetings, but still outside of the meeting room, we can be a very good friend. And
You became friends with people from opposing.
yeah.
Opinions.
Oh, yes,
Really?
yes. That kind of dynamism is very interesting because sometimes, I think that the diplomacy works in that way because, of course, countries do not have the same opinion. The countries has to sometimes be in opposite positions, but still in those interactions, person-to-person interactions outside of the meeting room, things might be changing or things might be, compromised.
Right.
That dynamics.
I mean, don't you think you could be out for a drink with them and they could be like, I'm gonna like drop a roofie in her drink so she can't make it to the meeting tomorrow. So
One less go for the
yeah. Come on, Kiwaka. Let's do another shot.
So really, the drink is a very good tool to become,
Wow.
to make
Wow.
people, talk.
Of
So-
course.
Wow, of course, but I didn't know that applies to that kind of very important international,
I think
stage,
after all, everything is, person-to-person relations. That what I really enjoyed. So my first experience in 3 years in the Netherlands was very interesting. So I was still young, so I was just after 30s, and then I became a lot of good friends there. That motivated me to continue working in that kind of multilateral.
So let me just get something clear. So in the Netherlands, it was part of the UN that you were working for, and that's
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not.
yes, but no.
I just want to go complicated things here, right?
So I was working on this organization called OPCW. This is not a part of UN, but it's a specialized international organization, almost like the United Nations.
Okay.
There are very close connections.
Similar.
Yes, but I was from the Japanese government side, working on that.
Wow.
So this is different from what I'm now doing. I'm now in the UN system, but
Right.
at that time I was from the Japanese side to work on the related issues. Yes.
So you've been at UN for a few years now, yeah?
Yeah.
How is it working at United Nations different from working at those different organizations that you've been in the past?
Well, in that very similar. So my work at the UN is really in the same line
Timeline.
from the
It's not like the stakes are higher, or
No.
Okay.
It's just UN is more general and it's more maybe political, but those organizations are specialized in one area. Yeah. But the dynamics is the same.
right. And you're the first Japanese representative for this organization that you're working for now. That's so impressive. Come on, take it. take the compliments. I'm so glad you're sitting here to be
Yeah.
graced. I feel like I'm in royalty a little bit.
Not everybody can do, even if they try,
Of course.
to be in a position. So yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I heard that your favorite accident is also the reason that you're pursuing this field. He has been pursuing this field, right? Please tell us about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, yes. So it was actually even before I started my job, before I went to Netherlands. So I met this person who I've been now together for more than 20 years. I met him when I was still at undergraduate college. And he was actually from Sri Lanka. He at that time already, he had been in Japan for 7-8 years. And then I happened to meet him through part of my college work. And he has always been a motivation for me to pursue what I want to do in my life. And so without him, I think I have given up this kind of work a lot more earlier because, maybe this is a common thing in Japanese college graduate that you wouldn't really pursue what you want to do. You just give up, you just go to find a job in a big company and then you just trying to find a
Husband?
Husband,
Yeah.
have like the 2.1 kids.
Yes. Yeah. But the reason why I wanted to pursue my dream is because of him. And yeah, he came from Sri Lanka. At that time when he came to Japan, Sri Lanka was still under internal conflict, and he had to drop out his college and he had to quit. He has to give up all his dreams.
This was back in the late 90s, right? So
Late 80s.
Late 80s.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, yeah, like Tamil Tigers.
Yes.
And,
So he left pretty much right after the conflict happened.
Yes.
Okay.
The conflict actually lasted for, I think, about 30 years.
Yeah.
It ended
Yeah.
in 2007 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes. At the timing when it happened, he was in a college and he had to drop out and everything. So for him, what I can do is a kind of a privilege thing. Being born in a peaceful country without, too much thinking about the
Conflicts and
conflict or
politics.
the
Yeah,
politics
of course.
or anything, So he really supported me doing what I want to do, and he's been in Japan all the time, and then I've been going to Netherlands.
No,
Swiss,
I was going to
US.
ask you. So he didn't travel with you when? No. Wow.
Well, one reason is because we actually haven't married, so we don't have a legal status. So it's very difficult for him to get the visa
Right.
to come to countries. So
Wow.
yeah, but
So he's been supporting you from Tokyo,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
all this time. Yeah, great. Yeah.
So he's not even here with you now in the United States, or he's back in Tokyo.
he's back in Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah, so
We got to get him over here.
But she went back for a few
summer.
months during this COVID
Oh,
because
okay.
of course she can work remotely. So
Right,
she
of
worked
course.
remotely from Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
He is really the motivation for me.
And he told you a lot, I'm sure, about civil wars and revolutions and what it means to the country.
Yeah. So that I and him do not share really the same opinion because he is from the conflict. He experienced the conflict of ethnic conflict. So he has more sort of, in a way, he doesn't believe in
Conflict?
mutual understanding, that kind of thing. I mean, different ethnics can create the one big community is a kind of illusion.
He kind of gave up on the idea.
Yes.
But you believe in it.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why you pursue this
Right,
in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, but having a different opinion is, of course, always a very good thing. I don't need to be too idealistic. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that you recently participated in the panel for gender, arms, and security. And that's about bringing in more female views and positions to the area.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
That was, again, a very important issue. And then that's, again, to me, I've been always interested in those different opinions, diversities, inclusiveness in any area. So again, in the disarmament, I've been working for 15 years, but mainly everybody working on that area.
Men.
Men.
No surprise there.
Right.
So you're one of the first women to work.
Not really. Not really. I'm the first woman, but then generally speaking, at most 30% are women, and then 70% are men. And then, of course, in other countries, some countries have 100%,
100,
yes,
yeah.
men in the delegation, and even the most sort of liberal countries like North Europe, they still have like 30% of women in delegation. So, yeah, so this is, I think I will work on more on that perspective because I think I have kind of built up certain expertise in this area. So now I think I would want to, bring more women into this.
To the table,
To the
right?
table,
Of
yes.
course,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. Yeah.
I mean, what other countries are you working with that have women?
So
Yeah?
it's I think it's
Not
really
many countries.
Not many.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Like, you think I might be the only one?
Because, like you said, even the so-called advanced,
Yes.
more progressive countries like like Northern Europe is still at about 30%, right?
Right.
So imagine what other countries,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like for example, in the U.S. case, it really depending on the administrations. So, for example, at Obama's administration, there are a lot more women involved in those areas. But for example, this Trump's negotiation with North Korea, there are no women.
No women, yeah.
Except
Really?
for the interpreters.
Wow.
For the interpreters.
But they could really interpret anything. I like it.
Interpretation is a very important
Of course,
job.
well,
Yes,
of course.
but-
Well, they have to be trusted.
Yeah, yes.
Because
Is it just me or many interpreters are female?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Many interpreters are female because I think I see more female interpreters than male interpreters. Now that you bring this up, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. People say that genetically women are more good at language. That's why.
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
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 But I don't know. Yeah.
How many languages do you speak, by the way? I mean, even like casual conversation. Because you lived,
You lived in so many
Switzerland.
countries.
Well,
huh?
yes. So I really studied Chinese quite long. So I kind of speak Chinese, not in a working level though, but I
Like casual
can
conversation,
communicate even
yeah.
with
Oh,
Chinese
wow.
in a casual conversation. Yeah. So English, Japanese, and Chinese. I lived in Geneva for a little bit more than 2 years, but then French. I
How about Netherlands?
Dutch
I mean, they
is
speak a
also
lot of
very
English over there,
difficult.
so.
Dutch is also very, very difficult.
Right. Well, it's Dutch, German. It's almost the same language,
Yeah.
and as a Latin language, I mean, I understand Spanish, but even French, maybe a couple of words.
Yeah, I've been studying French, but
I know.
it's a struggle.
She studies it very diligently.
Yeah.
So,
It's a struggle.
wow.
So going back to the relationship that Trump had with the United Nations, how was it different from the previous, say, like Obama administration?
Right.
I mean, in general.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
In generally speaking, really, there are tendencies that Republican administrations are more unilateral, and Democrat administrations are more focusing on more sort of considering the multilateralism. So there is this kind of general difference, but I found Trump administration was more particular on this America First policies. But this is actually not only the United States. Nowadays, many other countries, they take their own country first policies. So Russia,
China.
Yeah. It's been this backlash of nationalism that's happening. In Brazil.
right?
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
And many
Totally, yes.
many countries. I think you even said in Japan, didn't you say?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He's a nationalist, right?
Yeah.
So it's. I think this is not only the Trump thing, but then it's a kind of a general tendency now. And then for us from the United Nations, this is kind of a challenging moment, I think. So I really hope neither candidate both either candidate becomes the president, they would be more focusing on work in the multilateral forum. Yeah.
Sounds like you got to go out to drinks more with these guys, right?
That solves a lot of problems.
But basically, whichever the administrations, U.S. of course, for the U.S., United Nations is something a big forum where U.S. can pursue their own values, their own visions.
Right.
So there are not that much difference in whichever the administration, I mean, Democrats or Republicans take.
In terms of the relationship to the United Nations,
Yes.
you mean? Okay, interesting. I didn't. But what do you think is going to be different? Let's say Biden wins, and how do you think he's going to have a different approach?
Yeah, so because I don't really know how he thinks about the relation with the UN, but if he sort of takes over what Obama was doing, then at least he would bring issues in the multilateral forum. It's of course UN. It's not a perfect organization. It's a lot of inefficiency or administrative issues, but still UN is the only forum where 193 countries gather and discuss.
Right.
There is no other forum in the world like that. So at least if Biden brings those international or regional issues into the UN, that would be more transparent, and I'm really hoping that would happen. Not necessarily Biden, but
Come January.
Anyone, yeah.
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. So, I mean, I just feel that, Trump, pulling out of the Paris Agreement and kind of just pulling away from things. I mean, we're, we have to set the example, right?
I mean, he set the example, not the
He
good
set
one.
his own example. Right,
yeah.
but we have,
Yeah.
we have to set an example for the world, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I really hope a strong leadership from the United States.
Anything else?
I think that, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
it was
for
very
coming
good.
on.
Yeah.
It was great having you.
I think you
It was
made
great talking with you.
I think you made the topic really,
Very, very lighthearted, but very approachable.
Yeah, approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.